Hello, hello, hello. Alan here. This is Big Hard Books and Classics, and this is the Sex in Literature tag. It's an original tag by Brian at Bookish. See link below. First question is, what is a book you have read that comes close to crossing the line between literature, adult fiction, and pornography? And I don't have copies of these two books, but I'm going to go with Paris Trout and A Clockwork Orange. Both of those books have rape scenes with inanimate objects. Paris Trout is not one of my favorite novels. A Clockwork Orange is. And I have an original movie poster where it was still rated X. Number 2, what is a book you have read with a cringeworthy depiction or discussion of sex? And I'm going to go with Scar Lover by Harry Crews, a man who's not talked about on BookTube very much. He's deceased, but he taught out of the University of Florida in Gainesville. He's a Southern true grit writer. Brian and I are I'll be reading this book, reread for me, sometime this year. But here's a scene early on. When she spoke, her voice was no longer flat, but trembled right along with her breathing. You think I look all right? You look great. You think I look great and not just all right? For an answer, he sent his cupped hand shooting between her legs and fell upon her breast, sucking like a baby before he even got there. But he had hardly drawn her great dark nipple into his mouth before he knew something was wrong, something bad. He lifted his head from her breast and found her watching him carefully through eyes that were not only narrowed, but also filled with terror. What's wrong? Nothing, he said. Why'd you stop? I haven't stopped, he said. Just relax. Be easy. All right, she said, her voice shaking worse than ever. Maybe he'd been wrong. Maybe she was just too excited, or he was too tense, or there was nothing he could see to do but try to bowl on through. But when he took the same breast he had in his mouth into his hand, he gave a little cry and jerked his hand away as though he had put it on a hot stove. In the center of her breast was a knot bigger than a golf ball and as hard and as solid as stone. Number 2, what is a book you have read with a cringeworthy depiction or discussion of sex? I'm going to go with Homeboy for 2 of these. This is a very underrated novel that's not discussed on BookTube very much. It's an award-winning novel by Seth Morgan, who died tragically after he won all these awards on a motorcycle in New Orleans. So the first scene is well, I'm just going to read it. The child rapist was crumpled on his knees at the toilet, orange overalls bunched around his one ankle. Reverend Bones was naked, crouched behind him on the balls of his feet like a baseball catcher. One great hand held his victim's head inside the bowl. The other gathered lifeless loins to his own. His gleaming head flung back, straining noisily through clenched teeth. Bones was exacting the punishment to exactly fit the crime. Blood burbled, splattered the gray concrete. Over the synaptic storm of his skull, George heard Clovis pray, I sure hope I don't have to do no time. The time does itself, schooled Smooth Barrel. You just got to live with it. Number 3. What's the most overrated book with a reputation for being sexy that you have read? I don't know. I couldn't come up with one because I haven't read 50 Shades of Grey and I haven't read the Twilight series, so probably one of those. 4. What is your favorite from a book about or describing sex or a sexual situation? Now, I don't have this book either, but Sidney Sheldon, another person who's not discussed on, at least in our community, But Sidney Sheldon is a good writer. He's very popular, but he's a good writer with a lot of great ideas. And one of his books was called The Doomsday Conspiracy, and it was about aliens. And I'll never forget this one scene where there was a couple in bed. They had just like met at a bar or something, so they're in bed and they have the lights on and they're undressed. And the lady goes to the man, "Honey, do you want to turn off the light?" And he goes, "Sure." And he reaches his hand across the room and hits the light switch. 5. What is a book you have recently read that you think handles discussions of sex well? Well, I don't know about well, but it's pretty dramatic, and that's Against the Day. It's a three-way scene, and let me see if I got the right one. Yeah, it goes something like this. Yasmin reclined among the cushions of a red velvet divan, allowing the already precarious hem of her costume to slide upward and reveal her much commented upon legs and black silk hosiery, which she now pretended to inspect and adjust. Reef took a step forward, maybe two, to improve his view. "No, stay there where you are. Just there. Good. Don't move. Cyprian, Torcio, you know where you must be." Bowing his head gracefully, lifting his skirts as if to curtsy, Cyprian sank to his knees in a great rustling of silk taffeta. As Yasmin had arranged them, he could not help noticing her face was now level with and quite close enough to Reef's penis, which Reef, as Yasmin's suggestion, was removed from his trousers. It did not take nearly as long as Cyprian would have wished. He had grown fond over the years of preliminaries, but now was able to get in no more than a few trailing tongue kisses, a quick electrifying blink or two from his long eyelashes to the underside of the heated organ before hearing Yasmin's command, "Quickly now, into his mouth." Reef in one stroke, no more, and then you must be perfectly still and allow this tickling little Felicity, I don't know, to do all the work. And you, Cyprian, when he spreads you must not swallow, when he spins, you must not swallow any of it. You must keep it in your mouth. Is that understood? By now, she could barely maintain the tone of command, having aroused herself with kid-like gloved fingers busy at clitoral bud and parted labia, now sleekly framed among the foam of lace among the lips and pinching. Number 6. What are some books that contain positive, frank depictions of sexual relationships between LGBTQ plus characters? I'm going to go with Homeboy again, a scene in jail with two lesbians. Purring deep in her throat, Darcy pushed Rings back on the bunk. Unsnapping her jumpsuit and plucking it off, she hitched one of Ring's feet on the crossbar and planted the other on the floor. "You sopping wet, slut." She panted, slurped a thumb in Ring's milky snatch. Next, she slid her forefinger up Ring's glooming anus to massage against her thumb and secret membrane separating the channels. Gently gripping the two digits, she lifted Rings closer. "What do you think I am?" Rings cuffed. "A six-pack?" "Six-pack, my sweet ass," simmered Red Lurleen's brain pan. "Landfill's what you are once the fat man hears you're fixing to run your bitch mouth." 7. What do you think is the best way in depicting sex in literary fiction? I'm just going to say honestly, just be honest. No fluffy romantic things. Trying to get the words off and the scene off the page, as they say, or I always go back to Ray Pound, Ezra Pound. Make it new. lift it off the page. Get it out there. 7, tag some people. Okay? I tagged Todd the Librarian and Dane Cobain. 2 people I tagged last year in my Shut Down in Flames tag. And I don't think you got around to doing those, so I'll tag you again in this. I also tag Hannah at Hannah's Books. I'll tag Joey at Game of Authors. And I'll tag Brian at Bookwanting. And last but not least, I'm going to tag Silje. I know I tagged Silje in another one before this, but I'd much rather you do this one first. I want to hear Silje's answers on these. So thanks, Brian, for the tag. And I forgot the best one. Oh my God, I forgot. I think I answered all the questions, but I'm doing a read-along of Ulysses. And this might be my favorite. I think Brian had a favorite. I left it out. This is my favorite sex scene, and it's like midway through the book. It's in Nausicaa, episode 13, where Bloom is on the beach with Gertie McDowell. They're not even together. They're like watching each other. And she led him, and she saw that he saw. And then it went so high, it went out of sight a moment, and she was trembling in every limb from being bent so far back that he had a full view, high up above her knee, where no one ever, not even on a swing or waiting, and she wasn't ashamed, and he wasn't either, to look in that immodest way like that, because he couldn't resist the sight of the wondrous revealment, half offered like those skirt dancers, behaving so modest before gentlemen, looking, and he kept on looking. She would fain have cried to him chokingly, held out her snowy, slender arms to him to come, to feel her lips laid on her white brow, and cry of a young girl's love, a little strangled cry, wrung from her, that cry that has rung through the ages. And then a rocket sprang, and bang shot blind, and oh, then the Roman candle burst, and it was like a sigh of oh, and everyone cried oh, oh, in raptures, and it gushed out of it a stream of rain, gold, hair threads, and she shed, and ah, they were all greeny, dewy stars falling with golden, oh, so lovely, oh, soft, sweet, soft. That's at 13.726. And there's still time to join us in our read-along. We're getting through episode 6 of Hades, 6 out of 18 episodes, but you can jump in anytime. Hit me up at Alan770, and I'll put you right into our Boxer Ulysses group. Ciao. Oh, want to show this?